Hello? Hello? Okay, sorry. Sorry that I had to do that. Sorry if that fucked up your ears. But, my mic is being a little bit glitchy right now. It won't pick up my voice unless I start it with a loud sound, so. My parents are sleeping. So, the final bit, the chapter summary for the social approach. Okay, let's start. As I explained in my other chapter summary videos, chapter summary is useful for just jogging your brain, especially useful for understanding the idea of similarities and differences between the studies. But of course, what it actually says about aims, procedures, results, conclusion, it's not enough to get by, obviously. You need to actually read and understand the studies, and you should use my other videos for that. Okay, let's start. Milgram, obedience. Psychology being investigated here is the obedience to authority due to social pressure, the situational and dispositional factors involved in responding to the social pressure to obey an authority figure. The aim was to investigate the level of obedience when an authority figure orders a person to administer a physical punishment to a stranger. The procedure, a study was conducted in a laboratory setting whereby an experimenter orders a participant to deliver increasingly higher levels of electric shocks to another person when they answer questions incorrectly in another room. Sorry, I had to burp real quick. Very gassy. Data was collected via observations and an interview, and it included a dependent variable of voltage. Results. The highest level of electric shock, 450 volts, was delivered by 26 out of 40 participants. All participants delivered 300 volts. Participants showed physical signs of extreme tension, such as sweating and trembling. 3 had full-blown seizures. Conclusion. People are willing to go against their own moral tendencies to obey a perceived authority figure and harm another person while showing extraordinary tension and emotional strain. Strength. The measure of obedience maximum voltage was quantitative, which can be objectively analyzed. The aim of the study was hidden to avoid demand characteristics, increasing validity. Weaknesses. The study lacked mundane realism as shocking another person. Shocking another person as punishment is not a real-life occurrence. And it lacks generalizability as the study used 40 males from New Haven, USA. I don't know why they decided not to include the part about how it's insanely unethical, but they did somehow forget that. Links to assumptions. Behavior can be influenced by other individuals. In Milgram's study, an experimenter in a lab coat gave participants prods to continue delivering shocks to a learner. The majority obeyed and delivered 450 volts. Link stages and debates. All participants were willing to deliver 300 volts, suggesting that situational factors, such as the prods given by an authority figure, were responsible for obedience. On the other hand, 14 out of 40 participants refused to obey the experimenter at some point, supporting an individual explanation for behavior. A real-life application is educating others to resist obedience, as Milgram's research showed this to be challenging. For example, army training programs to resist the orders of authority figures on moral and ethical grounds. Similarities. Both Milgram and Perry et al. Used laboratory settings. Both Milgram and Plievin et al. Used stooges. Differences. And I think stooges are actors. Like, confederates to the researcher who are, like, acting. I think that's the idea. Differences. Milgram used a laboratory setting, while Plievin et al. Used a real-life subway. Milgram's study had no independent variable, while Perry et al.'s study did. Then we move on to Perry et al. Speak of the Devil. Personal space. Psychology being investigated. How the social hormone oxytocin and the empathy levels of a person affect preferred interpersonal distance, aka personal space. I'm just gonna lay back a little bit because my neck's getting sore. Okay. So, the procedure, the aim to investigate how oxytocin affects preferred interpersonal distance for those scoring high or low in empathy traits. Procedure. Participants high or low in empathy traits who received either oxytocin or a placebo indicated their preferred interpersonal distance from different protagonists via a computer animation. They also chose between room images based on preference for distance and angle of furniture from another person. The results: oxytocin decreased the preferred mean distance from another person in the high empathy group and increased it in the low empathy group. Conclusion: oxytocin affects preferred interpersonal distance dependent on empathy levels. Strengths: there is a high level of standardization through the use of computer animations and images. There was high validity due to the double-blind procedure to administer oxytocin or saline solution. The weaknesses: self-reports were used to categorize participants as high or low empathy, risking social desirability bias. Only male participants were used, so findings on the effects of oxytocin on preferred interpersonal distance cannot be generalized to females. Links to assumptions. People have preferred interpersonal differences for different types of people, meaning that behavior is influenced by the presence of others. Weaknesses. Links to issues and debates. Oxytocin decreased preferred interpersonal distance in those with high empathy traits, yet it increased it for those in low empathy. Sorry, burped again. Jesus Christ. Supporting individual explanations for the behavior. A real-life application is that Perry et al.'s findings counter previous research, and oxytocin may not be a suitable treatment for those with social disorders. Similarities. Both Perry et al. And Milgram collected quantitative data. Both Perry et al. And Pilyavin et al. Used deception in their studies. Differences. Perry et al. Used animated stooges, while Milgram used a real-life stooge. Perry et al. Gained informed consent from participants, while Pilyavin et al. Did not. Pilyavin et al. Subway Samaritans. So, the psychology being investigated here is the diffusion of responsibility and bystander apathy in emergency situations. The aim is to see whether bystander helping behavior in a real-life setting was affected by the victim's responsibility for their own situation, the race of the victim, modeling of helping behavior, and the size of the group. The procedure: a stooge who is either black or white, acting as either a ill or drunk person, would collapse on a New York subway train. On some trials, a model standing in the critical or adjacent area would offer help either early or late. Details of bystanders who offered help and comments from others were recorded. The results: the ill person was more likely to receive help, and there was no tendency for same-race helping unless the victim was drunk. Most first helpers were male. There was a weak positive correlation between group size and helping behavior. So that's contrary to the idea of diffusion of responsibility. Early models were also more likely to elicit help. Conclusion: the findings did not support Darley and Latane's diffusion of responsibility hypothesis in a real-world setting. Help was offered frequently and quickly on a busy train. Strengths: there was high ecological validity, as the setting was a real-life subway carriage. A standardized procedure was used. Models only helped after a set time period, so the study can be replicated. Weaknesses: ethical guidelines were broken due to no informed consent or debriefing. Also, there was a lack of controls due to the real-life subway setting. Links to assumptions. Behaviors can be influenced by groups, as others may feel less responsible in an emergency situation due to others being available to help. Links to issues and debates. On every Kane trial, someone came to help, supporting a situational explanation for behavior. The drunk black victim was helped only 73% of the time, suggesting individual differences in helping behavior. Similarities. Both Pilyavin et al. And Milgram used observations in their studies, and both Pilyavin et al. And Perry et al. Used an independent measures design. Differences. Pilyavin et al. Did not debrief participants, while Milgram did debrief them. Pilyavin et al. Used a real-life subway setting, while Perry et al. Used a laboratory setting. The end. Good luck on your AS levels tomorrow, if that's what you're taking. Have a good night. I will be having a good night as well. I should be going to sleep for 1 at least.
and then I will wake up at 8 or 9 and study for a little while, and then, yeah, we're gonna do good things tomorrow. We're gonna take a good test. We're gonna do good. We're gonna do good. Good night, good night. See you later.